Ever wonder how secure your favorite websites are? Or perhaps you're curious about what makes a website susceptible to hackers? In our increasingly digital world, web security has become more critical than ever. It's the guardian at the gate, protecting our personal and financial information from the prying eyes of cybercriminals. Now imagine a world where every website you visit, every online transaction you make is a potential risk. Scary, right? This is where our cybersecurity enthusiasts come in. These are the unsung heroes, working behind the scenes to fortify our digital walls, ensuring that our data remains safe and secure. They use a variety of tools and techniques to identify vulnerabilities and patch them up before they can be exploited. One of the most valuable resources they have at their disposal is the OWASP Top 10, a list of the most common web vulnerabilities. Today we'll dive into the top 10 most common web vulnerabilities as identified by OWASP, a leading authority in the field. Before we delve into the list, it's essential to understand what OWASP is. The acronym stands for Open Web Application Security Project. This isn't just any project, it's a worldwide not-for-profit organization that has taken on the noble mission of improving the security of software. Everywhere you look in the cybersecurity community, OWASP's influence is evident. Their work primarily revolves around identifying, documenting, and sharing knowledge about the most common web vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are essentially the weak links that cybercriminals can exploit to cause harm. OWASP's diligent work helps developers and security professionals alike to stay one step ahead of these cyber threats. They've compiled a list of the top 10 web vulnerabilities, which we will explore in detail soon. This list is a valuable resource for anyone looking to strengthen their cyber defenses. Now that we know about OWASP, let's unveil the top 10 web vulnerabilities they have identified. Without further ado, here are the OWASP top 10 web vulnerabilities. First up, we have injection. This vulnerability occurs when untrusted data is sent as a query or command, tricking the interpreter and leading to unauthorized data access or worse, data loss. Next in line is broken authentication. This issue happens when session management and authentication functions are poorly implemented, allowing attackers to compromise passwords, keys, or session tokens, or to exploit other implementation flaws to assume users' identities. Moving on, we have sensitive data exposure. This vulnerability arises when an application does not adequately protect sensitive information, such as financial data, healthcare records, or personal identifiers, which can lead to data theft or fraud. Number 4 is XML external entities, also known as XXE. This issue affects older or poorly configured XML processors that allow specification of an external entity, a URI that is dereferenced and evaluated during XML processing. This can lead to disclosure of internal files, denial of service, or remote code execution. Next, we have broken access control. This vulnerability occurs when restrictions on authenticated users are not properly enforced, allowing them to perform tasks outside their permissions. Then we have security misconfiguration. This is a common issue where default configurations are used or unnecessary features are enabled, leading to potential unauthorized access. Number 7 is cross-site scripting, or XSS. This vulnerability allows attackers to inject malicious scripts into web pages viewed by other users, leading to a range of attacks such as stealing user sessions and defacing websites. Next, we have insecure deserialization. This flaw allows attackers to execute code in the application remotely, leading to a variety of attacks. Penultimate on our list is using components with known vulnerabilities. This vulnerability occurs when components such as libraries and frameworks with known vulnerabilities are used, which can undermine application defenses and enable various attacks. Finally, we have insufficient logging and monitoring. This issue allows attackers to maintain persistence or pivot to more systems due to inadequate auditing and monitoring. These vulnerabilities may sound complicated, but don't worry, we'll break each one down. Let's take a closer look at the first 5 vulnerabilities. First on our list is injection. This flaw occurs when an attacker can send hostile data to an interpreter. Consider this: you're at a fancy dinner and someone slips a note to the waiter that says, "Bring me all the steak." Instead of questioning it, the waiter obliges. That's an injection vulnerability in a nutshell. The server blindly trusts the input and carries out potentially harmful instructions. Next up is broken authentication. This vulnerability can happen when session management and authentication functions are implemented incorrectly, allowing hackers to impersonate other users. Picture a valet parking service where the attendant hands out car keys to anyone who asks. That's a nightmare scenario, isn't it? That's what broken authentication feels like in the cybersecurity world. The third vulnerability is sensitive data exposure. This flaw happens when an application doesn't adequately protect sensitive information from being disclosed. Imagine leaving your diary out in the open for anyone to read. That's sensitive data exposure, where your secrets, or in this case user credentials, credit card information, or health records, are left unprotected. Cross-site scripting, or XSS, is the fourth vulnerability. This flaw allows attackers to inject malicious scripts into web pages viewed by other users. Think of it like a graffiti artist spray painting a billboard with a harmful message. Every passerby who sees the billboard is affected. Similarly, a hacker can use XSS to deface a website, steal user data, or even control affected users' interactions with the site. Finally, we have security misconfigurations. These occur when security settings are defined, implemented, and maintained as defaults. It's like buying a new phone and never changing the default password. We all know that's a bad idea, right? In the same vein, leaving default settings in place can give attackers access to sensitive information or system features. Understanding these vulnerabilities is the first step towards remediation. Now let's continue with the rest of the list. Next up, we have security misconfiguration. This happens when an application's systems are not correctly set up, exposing unnecessary details to potential hackers. It's like leaving your house with doors unlocked and windows wide open. An example could be an application revealing error details that contain sensitive server information. This could provide a hacker with a roadmap to exploit your system. Following this, we have cross-site scripting, or XSS. This is when an attacker injects malicious scripts into trusted websites. Imagine a scenario where a hacker sneaks a dangerous snake into a petting zoo. The zoo visitors, trusting the environment, would not expect to encounter such a threat. Similarly, users trust content from a reputable site, not expecting that it could execute malicious scripts in their browser. Then, there's insecure deserialization. It's like accepting a gift from a stranger, without knowing what's inside. This could be used to execute harmful commands or crash your application. A hacker could, for instance, manipulate serialized objects to elevate their user privileges. The ninth vulnerability is using components with known vulnerabilities. It's like using a faulty lock on your door. Even though it might look secure, it can be easily bypassed. For instance, an outdated library in your application can have known weaknesses that hackers can exploit. And finally, we have insufficient logging and monitoring. This is akin to ignoring your security camera feed. If an incident occurs and you don't have adequate logs, you won't know what hit you until it's too late. For example, if a hacker is attempting multiple logins and your application doesn't alert you, they could potentially gain access without you knowing. Now that we've covered all 10 vulnerabilities, let's talk about how we can remediate them. Knowledge of the vulnerabilities is half the battle won. The other half is knowing how to remediate them. Remediation strategies can vary, but there are a few general practices that can go a long way in securing your web applications. Firstly, regular updates are essential. Vulnerabilities often stem from outdated software, so it's crucial to keep all systems and applications up to date. Next, secure coding practices play a significant role. It's not enough to just write code that works. It needs to be secure. This means validating and sanitizing data inputs, using prepared statements to prevent SQL injection, and implementing proper error handling. Proactive monitoring is another key strategy. This involves continuously monitoring your systems for unusual activity and addressing any anomalies as soon as they're detected. Finally, it's important to educate your team about these vulnerabilities and how to avoid them. Remember, the best defense is a good offense. Stay one step ahead of hackers by understanding these vulnerabilities and how to remediate them. Web security is a vast and complex field, but understanding it is crucial in our increasingly digital world. We've traveled through the intricacies of the OWASP Top 10, unmasking the common web vulnerabilities that lurk in the shadows of the digital landscape. From injection flaws to broken authentication, sensitive data exposure to XML external entities vulnerabilities, we've dived deep into the heart of the matter. But knowledge is only the first step. We've also explored the strategies to remediate these vulnerabilities, from proper coding practices to regular updates and patches. It's a continuous journey, a quest for a safer, more secure digital world. Remember, cybersecurity is not a destination. It's an ongoing, ever-evolving process, and each one of us has a part to play in it. So, continue to explore, learn, and apply your knowledge. Thank you for joining us on this journey through web vulnerabilities. Keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, stay safe online.